My name is McGill. I'm a member of the National Thompson School Box program, and I welcome everyone to the Business Kickstart 101 event today. Our last Dean Speaker Series event today features Vandor, who is an RBC Olympian. Douglas graduated from McGill University in 1998 and also started rowing in the same institution. Douglas has also has performed in 2 Olympics, the Beijing 2008 and the London 2012 Olympic Games. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Douglas.
Do I need this? I'll try to project without this and without breaking the podium. It's great to be here in Kamloops. I'm not originally from BC, I'm from Quebec, but please don't hold that against me. When I first moved to BC, I have to say I was a bit ignorant of the BC geography and of some of the towns. And I used to get Kelowna and Kamloops mixed up a lot, as I think maybe a lot of people do. My Kelowna friends, or my friends who were from Kelowna and Victoria, where I moved to, they always seemed to be upset when I made that mistake. And after coming to Kamloops numerous times now, I'm not quite sure why they were upset and insulted. I think it should maybe be the other way around. Regardless, it's great to be here at Thompson University. It's a bit warmer than the last time I was here. And I have to say, living on the West Coast makes you soft. 5 degrees is cold. And I grew up in Quebec where it was regularly -20. So hopefully I'll be able to share with you a couple of stories that will resonate with you and help you muddle forward in your individual journeys, because in truth, that's what we're all doing. We're all muddling forward through life, and we're trying to make the right choices, trying to find the right formula that's tailored to our individual personas, because the thing to remember is that there's no right way to live life. There are paths that are more usual and more common, but that doesn't mean that they're the right ones. So it's about finding that right formula, or as I like to call it, more a philosophy. And regardless of which paths we decide, there's something that benefits us both, and that's if we can translate what we're actually doing into what I like to call the 1 + 1 = 3 phenomenon. So how do we make the whole greater than the sum of the individual parts? How do we make 1 + 1 = 3 instead of just 1 + 1 = 2? So I want to start with 5 words or concepts that I try to live my life by. It's helped me in the past, it's helped me in the present, and hopefully it'll help me in the future. I'm confident it will help me in the future. And these words are dreaming, dreams, passion, hard work, building your team, and persistence. Now, these 5 words, I feel, are so intrinsically linked that if you take one out of the equation, the result's that 1 + 1 will = 2 instead of 3. You don't get the benefit of all of them working together and building off of each other. Now, in rowing, in crew rowing, if you get the whole to add up to more than the individual rowers in the boat, you're going to be flying down the course. You're going to be super fast. And when you're racing, you want to be working hard, but you don't want it to feel hard. You want it to feel like it's adding up to 3 and not 2, because you can still win races with the 1 + 1 = 2, but it's so much better and easier if it is equal to 3. So my crew was a double. That's 2 people in a boat, each with 2 oars. And hopefully those 2 people are working in perfect unison. When we're not working in perfect unison, and it's happened before where 2 people are in a boat and you can take the 2 of the strongest people working in the boat, but they're not working together and it just doesn't feel good. But when you can take 2 weaker people who are working together and that boat just flies down the course and beats the 2 individuals who are stronger. And why are they doing that? Because they're complementing one another. They're building off of each other. It's like the difference between when you're jumping on a hardwood floor versus jumping on a trampoline. Sure, you can jump high off the floor, but the trampoline complements the muscles and the actions in your legs so that you're able to jump twice as high. So all of a sudden, you're doing the exact same thing, but moving further. And so when you get it right in the boat, if you're just moving an inch farther than your competition each stroke, that's only an inch. But over the course of 2 kilometers, that translates into maybe 10 meters, and that's an easy win. That's the 1 + 1 = 3 concept that I try to strive for all the time. And this can be applied to sport, it can be applied to business, to jobs, to relationships, to whatever you're undertaking. Now the key is, how do you do that? It's unlocking that phenomenon. And I believe the answers are, like I said, in those 5 words: dreaming, passion, hard work, building your team, and persistence. And it's not something that you just do once. It's something you have to live your life by. It's a philosophy. Just like if you want to lose weight and keep it off, it's a cliche, but it's a life change you have to go on. It's not a diet. It's not eating 1 carrot that's going to make change. It's starting to eat vegetables. So before I continue, I want to just show you a clip that sort of illustrates this, sort of what we do on the rowing team and how it is a philosophy, and it's something that we practice each and every day and chip away at day after day after day.
The best form of motivation is progress. If you see that doing the work you are doing progresses you, then you're motivated to keep doing it. Every athlete has a point at which they stop, when they stop pushing. It could be a wet and rainy day, it could be getting out of bed in the morning, it could be pressure. Tiredness, could be fatigue. His role is to help that athlete delay that stopping point until he's through the last stroke of that Olympic final.
My name is Cam Sylvester, Derek O'Farrell, Will Brother, Douglas Vandor, Colin McGill, Brian Price, Doug Gemma, Steve Van Assenberg, Kevin Light, Robbie Gibson, Jerry Brown.
I've been running on the national team for 4 years.
10 years.
6 years, 5 years,
3 years.
6 years,
5 years. 1 year.
11 years,
13 years.
5 years, 5 years, 6 years.
2012 will be my first Olympics.
First Olympics,
First Olympics.
third Olympics, first Olympics,
First Olympics.
Third Olympics.
Second Olympics.
first Olympics,
Third Olympics.
second Olympics.
To win an Olympic gold medal, it's not always easy. Darkest days were a couple months in.
I wouldn't be able to do it. I just want to go back to bed. I could sleep for 4 more hours, but I can't.
There's no excuse that's good enough. No excuses.
My pair partner needs me, my 4 needs me, my 8 needs me. I want to go show what I can do every single day.
I mean, everybody who's going to the Olympics has the same goal.
Achieving a common goal. Everybody's got the same goal.
What the gym?
Gold, gold, gold,
Goal.
Gold.
gold.
We just want to win.
Mentally and physically.
Mentally, physically exhausting.
Exhausting every week. So crushing.
Just being broken down to your core.
Body breaking down.
It's where you find the little devil in yourself.
The habits for this created day in and day out.
Group mentality.
Group mentality, very competitive. We're such competitive athletes. So competitive. Competing with each other.
Training as hard as you can.
Raising everybody's game, keep moving forward.
That little bit of improvement gives you such a huge motivation.
Prove to yourself how fast you really are.
Confidence that we keep doing what we're doing. And that confidence that what we've done is the best.
With the proper preparation, 24/7 athlete, 365 days of the year. Become stronger and faster, fitter,
Every practice like it's my last practice.
to fight every workout.
That's what the training's for. Can't really compare this to anything else that I've done.
One cut again. One cut through. One cut. Catch the finish. Catch the finish. Stay with me here, boys.
We push ourselves this hard to be the best in the world. We have to each believe that there isn't anybody out there who's working harder than we are.
That's what's going to make us the best in 2012. So that gives a bit of an indication of what we do on a daily basis. You know, and it's not as simple as just training the year before the Olympics. It starts many years before the Olympics, sometimes, you know, 12 years before the Olympics. And so I want to move on and ask you guys, how many times have you heard people say, I don't like what I do, I hate my job, right? So clap if you have heard that before. How many people have heard that? Right, we've all heard that, right? So when people say they hate what they do, I hear that, I cringe, because it really scares me, because our working week is 5 days long. That means that you're hating 5 out of every 7 days of the week. That means you're dreading about 70% of your life. Now, that's a huge amount of life to hate. Life's too short to be miserable that much time. It's just not worth it. And so the key is to be happy. We hear that. Just be happy. But that's so simple and condescending, right? Just be happy. What does that mean? How do you achieve that? Well, most people are happy when they're having fun, and one can spend the whole day doing something when it's fun. So I use the analogy many times of playing video games with kids. How can kids spend hours and hours and hours playing video games? Well, they can do it because they're having fun. They're actually working, but they are having fun. So if we go back a long time ago with me and my little brothers, back in the day when we wanted to, if we didn't have the PlayStation at home, before it was even called a PlayStation, the Nintendo, we rented it at the video store, right? We had a 24-hour period to maximize our time with this Nintendo and the game that we allowed. So our parents let me, my 2 little brothers, rent it. What did we do? We got home, locked ourselves in the TV room, and we had 24 hours before we had to bring the thing back to try to finish the game, right? So what did we do in those 24 hours? They were hard work. We had to strategize. We had to hone our skills. We had to figure out how to get from one level to the next. This was all work. But it was fun, right? We were having fun, and that's why we could attack it hour after hour after hour without realizing that we were actually putting work into it. We were able to do it because it didn't feel like work. So that's the key, fun. Find something that you're passionate about. And try switching, instead of saying, you know, I'm living for the weekend, try saying, I'm living for the week, right? That's a better saying than I'm living for the weekend. So find something you're passionate about, number 1. And then number 2, and here's the important part, work really hard at it. Sounds simple, right? But passion and hard work go hand in hand, because if you're passionate about something, it's fun to do. And if it's fun to do, working hard doesn't seem like hard work. So that's not saying it's going to be easy, but the point is, if you love what you do, working hard at it will seem easier than if you're not working hard at something that you don't like doing. Now, hard work never guarantees success, but without it, you're going nowhere. So let me repeat that. Hard work doesn't guarantee success, but without it, you're going nowhere. Which is why you have to trick yourself into working hard. And this is done by doing something you love. It doesn't feel like drudgery. You're happy doing it day after day after day because you're passionate about it. You're happy to wake up in the morning. You're excited to go down to the lake and get into that boat with your teammates and push yourself. When something is fun, it doesn't feel like a chore, and that's what happens. You end up doing it a lot without even noticing it, and that's the key to getting good at something and honing your skills, is doing it day after day after day after day. Because no one's born being talented at something. No one's born knowing how to play Chopin or Beethoven or being a great basketball player. I guarantee that they practice and practice and practice. Even that 11-year-old who's the chess master, he's having fun. He's playing chess. He loves playing chess. Maybe playing chess for me all day is not fun, but for this kid it is. And he's getting better at it and good at it. Now, I loved playing sports growing up. The problem was I wasn't good at it. I wasn't really good at sports. And so in order to do what other people could not, I had to be prepared to do what other people would not do. And that was hard work. Now, most people don't want to work hard. So that was my weapon. That was my advantage over everyone else. And I'll tell you the first time I learned this. I learned this very early on. I was 13 years old. I love sports, like I said, but I wasn't good at any of them, and I played everything, believe me. Football, basketball, volleyball, hockey, you name it. But I was always sitting on the bench, right? I just wasn't good. And I remember one game in particular in Quebec. It was the end of October, beginning of November. It was cold out. I was on the football team, and we were playing some Montreal private school. We were the farmer school from the country. And we were wearing gloves because it was cold out. And one of the kids on the team came up to me and says, "Can I borrow your gloves?" And I'm like, "Of course not, I need them." He's like, "Why do you need them? You don't even play." I was like, oh, painful, so painful. And just to illustrate, the reason I say that is that I wasn't an athletic standout. No one would have said that kid is the athlete in the group. So one day it was suggested that I try out for the cross-country team or the track team, and this was the team that all the losers tried out for, because I don't even think there were tryouts. You just automatically made the team because they needed numbers. And I guarantee the prom king didn't come from the track team, right? It was the scrawny kids on the track team. And this is what I learned, the most powerful lesson that I've ever learned in my life, and one that I still prescribe to this day. The more I ran, the faster I became. Cross-country practice was 2 days a week. But I loved running, so I'm like, why wouldn't I run 4 or 5 days a week? The coach isn't telling me to run, but I like doing it. It wasn't a chore for me. I liked it. All I needed was a pair of running shoes. I didn't have to learn rules to a game I didn't understand. It was simple. It made me feel good, so I started running every day. And I was beginning to develop a passion for running. So I ran every day, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I loved it. I looked forward to it. And after a couple of months, I wasn't the worst guy on the team anymore. And after a year, I actually started to get good at it. And so I realized all I have to do is train 5 days a week, and I can start beating people. I'm training 5 days a week, and 1 + 1 is starting to equal 3 because I'm going into races, and I'm not even tired at the end of the race, and I'm beating everyone. People who are bent over, vomiting because their 1 + 1 is equaling to 2. So the more I ran, the faster I became, and I started winning, which made me want to train even more. So it was like this positive cycle that was feeding off of each other. And then, ironically, I became known as a runner. I was an athlete all of a sudden without even, trying, because I was just having fun. And then I started to dream. Now, dreams don't always have to be grandiose. It's more like goal setting when I say dreams. Like, 'cause I wasn't dreaming of the Olympics at age 13, but I was dreaming of being the fastest runner on the cross-country team, maybe winning the Montreal City Championships, maybe going to represent Quebec at the Canada Games. And the important part was that I wasn't dreaming and doing nothing about it. I was backing up those dreams with hard work, because when you dream and do nothing, it's called daydreaming. When you dream and back it up, those are goals. And the best thing about it was that it didn't feel like work. I honestly was having fun. I loved it. I was passionate about running. And eventually people would comment, you're working so hard. And I would think to myself, I'm not working. This would be hard work for you because it's not what you want to do. But for me, I'm just having fun. So find something that doesn't feel like work. And that's a huge piece of the pie when it comes to finding your key to your success. And that lesson's repeated again and again. And over the years, I've been doing that and applying that principle to everything you do. And it's something I applied to rowing when I eventually started rowing when I went to McGill. I started rowing and I started falling in love with and becoming passionate about rowing. And once again, those words, being passionate, dreaming, persistence, hard work, building a team, those 5 things I mentioned at the beginning, they were coming into play again with rowing at McGill. And I wasn't dreaming of the Olympics at McGill. I was dreaming of making the novice team, first of all, and then making the varsity team, and then maybe stroking the men's 8, and then maybe having the best erg score on the team. But I was backing up those dreams with hard work. I wasn't daydreaming. I was backing it up with hard work. But once again, it didn't feel like work because it's what I wanted to do. It's where I wanted to be. And so you see the theme that keeps appearing. After practice at McGill, you know, people would go home and I would, after breakfast, go back if I could and do another practice or finish my classes and go back and do another workout. And I never looked at it as like a sacrifice. It never felt like one. It wasn't a sacrifice. It's not a sacrifice to try to make the Olympic team. It's choices that you're making, and that's the big difference. It's not a sacrifice, it's a choice. It might not be your choice, which is fine, but it was my choice. And isn't often the case, but not always, with hard work, which to me seemed like fun, rowing, it was started to pay off, and people in the national team, the coaches, started to notice me. And so I was invited to move out to Victoria, and so when I finished my master's degree at McGill, packed up, moved out to Victoria. Now, this was a huge transition for me. I was moving from a big fish in a small pond scenario to a small fish in a huge ocean, drowning, sinking at the bottom scenario. And it was a huge adjustment. And our society wants overnight success, right? Instant results. And I knew from my running days way back when in high school that it took a good 2 years for me. It took 2 years in high school for me to be considered a runner. Now, 2 years in high school, that's an eternity, right? That's half a lifetime. So I knew that persistence paid off, and you had to chip away at it day after day. But, you know, I still fall into the same trap as everyone else, wanting those instant results. And, you know, even though I know you can't win a medal at the elite level in just a month, you know, I knew you need years of preparation. Just as you can't retire comfortably with no preparation, or you can't have a successful business with no preparation, or lose 35 pounds with no preparation. But you forget sometimes what's required, and what's required are steps taken every day, which when added cumulatively over a long period of time equates in something greater than the sum of those individual parts. And that's what we call the pursuit of excellence, because there's no shortcuts to excellence. So like back in high school with running, it didn't happen overnight. So why should it happen with rowing overnight? Why should I be disappointed that after a month of being in Victoria, I sucked? You know, I was even worse than I was when I first got there because I was so exhausted. So I want everyone to look at their hands now and see how smooth the palms of their hands are. After a month of training in Victoria, my hands were covered in blisters, like very painful blisters that were bleeding. And one of the things with rowing is that you get calluses, and calluses is your body's way of protecting the constant rubbing that happens on the oars. But before it turns to calluses, you need blisters, bloody blisters. And the calluses that I had built up at McGill were not adequate for 6 hours of rowing a day. It simply wouldn't cut it. I'd had blisters in the past, but like I said, I'd never rowed this much. And so it was extremely painful, and the worst thing with blisters, especially when they pop open and you have raw skin that's never been exposed to the elements before, is it feels like someone is taking an X-Acto knife and just hacking away at your hands, especially when water hits them. So this is the state I found myself in 4 months after moving to Victoria. So I've been in Victoria a month now. My mode of transportation is a bike because I didn't have enough money for a car. It's raining like I've never known it to rain before. And on top of 3 workouts a day, I have to bike 20 kilometers back and forth to the lake in order to get to practice. My hands are bloody and painful. I can't even shower or wash dishes without putting plastic bags on my hands to protect them because it's so painful. And so just the little mundane things you take for granted that you do every day became an ordeal. So it's the end of the day, dark and misty outside, it's raining, I'm biking home, I'm balancing 2 bags of groceries on the handlebars because by the time I get home, I'm too exhausted to go back to the grocery store. holding on to the handlebars with this part of my hand because it's too painful. And all of a sudden, a big truck blows by me on West Saanich Road, and you know, the wind current that comes off the truck pushes me a bit, which makes the milk gallon move a bit, which I'm not used to because we actually don't have gallons of milk in Quebec, believe it or not. We have bags of milk. And so it's starting to jiggle. I can't really grip the hands, and before I know it, I'm tumbling head over heels into the ditch. Gallon of milk busted, my wheels bent, my hands are bleeding again. I have mud in my mouth, and I'm here, I'm like, what am I doing here, right? All I want to say is, why am I here? Why? What am I doing? Is this worth it? Why am I here? Except the only difference was there were a couple of words with F in there somewhere. So the next day, after another 3 workouts are over, I'm unlocking my bike and heading home, and Mike Spracklin, whose voice you heard, the British accent, the coach in that video, he comes over to me. He's the head coach at the National Training Center, and he says, Doug, how are things going? And I almost broke down. I had that knot in the throat that you get when you're homesick, you know, and you're on the verge of crying. And I said, not very good. I'm like, I don't think I'm cut out for this. Like, I'm not good. I'm losing every workout on the water. I'm getting slower. I see no sign of improvement. You know, I really feel like I'm sinking. And he looks at me, he puts his arm on my shoulder, and he says, Douglas, how long have you been here? And I said, 4 weeks. And he's like, 4 weeks? You expect to waltz in here after 4 weeks and beat Olympic athletes who are World Cup champions and World Championship medalists in 4 weeks? He says, I see the way you train. And I'm like, yeah, actually I do. And he's like, I see the way you train. It's going to happen. I see your persistence, but it takes time. It may take 6 months. It may take a year. It may take 2 years. But you have to give it time. Nothing happens overnight. You have to be persistent and consistent. He said, I believe in you. Now you have to believe in yourself. I believe in you. Now you have to believe in yourself, he said. Now Mike had no idea what had happened to me the night before, but his words at that moment were the equivalent of handing me an Olympic gold medal. He had no idea the power that those words had on me at those exact moments. And you know, everything he told me I knew. Of course I knew it, but I needed to hear it from him at that moment. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. You know, I loved rowing. Even with bloody hands, I loved rowing. And why should it be easy? I mean, if it was easy, everyone would do it. In order to do what other people can't, I had to be willing to do what other people would not do. I was passionate about rowing. I had dreams about rowing. I had goals, about lofty goals. I was backing it up with hard work. I just needed to be persistent and patient. And that's what he reminded me of. He also reminded me of how important it is to build your team. Surround yourselves with the right people. I mean, I barely knew Mike, but he was just one of many coaches at the center. But that night, I started thinking about building my team and who I wanted to surround myself with, who I wanted as a mentor. And I wanted Mike Spracklin on my team. And those words had such a profound impact on me, words that were spoken in the back of some dirty bay in 2001, that I remember them to this day. And 18 months after those words were first spoken to me, at my first World Cup race in Switzerland, those were the words that were going through my head as I was standing on top of the podium on a beautiful sunny Swiss day as the gold medal was being put around my neck. So dreams, passion, hard work, building a team, persistence, the combination of those 5 things are extremely powerful, because when you get them right, they feed off of each other, and the combination of them are so much more powerful than any one of them on their own. They're what make the 1 + 1 add up to 3 and not 2. And doing these 5 things together is the equivalent of saying, I'm giving 110%. You hear that all the time, I'm giving 110%. You always want to train like you're going after a gold medal, for many reasons, one of them being because if you're having a bad day, and it happens to be the Olympic final, you want your bad day to be a silver medal, not a 4th place finish. And if you train like you're a bronze medal athlete, then on that bad day, because we all have bad days, you're going to come 4th. And believe me, coming 4th is a bad day. But it's very hard to train like that. It's very hard to train like you're going after the gold medal every day. Now, that's the hard part. It's easy to give 110% on day 1, 105% on day 2, maybe on day 3, but try giving 110% for 2,000 days in a row. But it's easier to give that 110% day after day after day if you're passionate about what you do, and if you have the right team around you supporting you, and if you're working hard but not really knowing you're working hard because what you're doing is actually just doing what you love. So in 2011, I was in Slovenia at the World Championships, and this served as the first Olympic qualifying regatta before the London 2012 Olympics. So in my event, the lightweight double, there's 11 spots up for grabs to qualify for the Olympics 1 year before, out of about 40 crews at the World Championships. And if you don't qualify there, you have one last chance to qualify about 6 weeks before the Olympics, but it's extremely hard. And it's definitely not ideal because then your whole year is spent peaking for that one last spot qualification regatta as opposed to a year of preparation for the Olympics. So in lightweight, there's 2 categories of rowing, lightweight, heavyweight. I'm obviously a lightweight. The other day, someone asked me if I was a coxie. I said, that's very insulting, but I won't hold it against you. Coxie being the little guy in the 8-man boat that shouts the orders and doesn't exercise. And within the lightweight category, there's 2 events. There's the 4 and the double. I was part of the double. Now, 3 years prior to the London Olympics, following the Beijing Olympics, me and my doubles partner, Cam, made an unpopular decision within our organization to leave that lightweight group to train with the men's 8 who had won the gold medal in Beijing and who was coached by Mike Spracklin, the voice you heard on the video, the coach that said those powerful words to me at the back of the bay in 2001. I wanted to train with winners. I wanted to surround myself with winners. I wanted to build my team with winners. I wanted to be around winning athletes, a coach with a winning history, a group that allowed me to dream and then translate that dream with the right work ethic into medals. And in order to do that, I had to ditch the losers. Now, calling them losers is, the lightweight group, losers is a strong word, but they were losers to me because they complained all the time. They didn't like their training. They would disappear for months. The worst months to train when the medals are won in the summer is through the rainy winter in Victoria, and they wouldn't show up for January and February. And you expect me to then get into a boat with them in March when they decide the sun's coming out and they want to start training again. They didn't believe in themselves. They didn't believe in the team or what they were capable of achieving. And so why would I want to be around people like that? They didn't like what they were doing. I loved rowing, even when it was raining outside. They didn't like it. They wanted to do it because maybe they'd get a free trip to Europe. Well, I didn't want to be surrounded with that toxic environment. So Cam and myself left the group. Now, this was very unpopular with the federation and with the lightweights, and we were called, many things, amongst them, you think you're too good for us. And it's like, no, I'm dedicating my life to this. I want to give myself a fighting chance to win a gold medal. So after a year of training with Mike's group following the Beijing Olympics, Cam and myself, after a year of training that we weren't really used to with the lightweight group, we went to our first World Cup in Spain, and we got a silver medal. And the race actually felt easy. So previously, before, when we would be bending over our oars, coughing up a lung, and not being within contention, now we're finishing the race and like, oh, that's interesting. Let's go row over to the podium and get our medal. So the proof was there. And in the 3 years following Beijing, Cam and me were on the podium 75% of the time, and we never finished worse than 5th in the world. So here we are back in Slovenia, a year before the London Olympics. Next chance to qualify. We don't want to even entertain those thoughts of qualifying at the second qualifier. We want to get it done now. But we're gunning for gold. So qualifying, our goal is to be world champions. The qualifying will take care of itself. So after winning the heat, it's a progression. It's a long regatta, a week long. You win the heat and you keep moving on. We're now in the quarterfinals. So I wake up the morning of the quarterfinal and I feel a little sort of, as my British coach would say, a niggle in my back. The problem was, the more I stretched it, which usually what happens with muscles, you stretch it and you can usually warm it up and it goes away because we're always getting aches and pains everywhere. The more I stretched it, the worse it became. So we went down to the course and we did our 4K loop, which sort of helps wake the body up. And I could barely carry the boat down to the dock. And I muddled through the 4K loop, which shouldn't be a big deal at all, but this time it was. And I could tell, I sit behind Cam, and I could tell Cam knew something was wrong, but he wasn't saying anything. And after the row, I went to the physios and the chiro, and I said, help, yeah, you have to help me. But the more they worked on it, the worse it became, so that after they worked on it, I wasn't able to even bend over. I was just able to stand straight. So I called the doctor over, and he gave me a painkiller. And within, at this point, we're 2 hours before the quarterfinal. And he gives me a painkiller, and within 20 minutes, I can start to move again. So I call him over, and I'm like, I need more painkillers. And so he gave me the painkillers, which allowed us to race. And then we made it through the quarterfinals into the semi. So we were now in the top 12, right? So 12 boats were now selected for the 2 semifinals, and 11 of these 12 boats were going to qualify for the Olympics. So what happens? We're sort of in panic mode a bit. We're in the top 12, but we're not focusing on, or it's easy to not focus on the fact that we have 11 spots in order, 11 chances to qualify. We're focusing on what if we're that one spot that doesn't qualify. So it was definitely a tense few days, and our goals shifted from thinking we were going to become world champions to now just wanting to qualify. The medical personnel didn't think that it was that bad in my back, but the reality is that I was on painkillers night and day, and I couldn't get out of bed. And at this level, to win, you have to be at 100%. And when you're at 95%, that's the difference between first and sixth. The only thing that gave me confidence was the knowledge of what we had done for the 3 previous years. We had worked hard leading up to this event. I was confident in our fitness. We had done our homework. When we were on form, we were capable of winning the gold. So surely when we're not on form, we can squeak out a top 11 finish. So we muddled through the semifinal and had our worst race since Beijing. And we qualified for the B final, which meant we were now going to be ranked somewhere between 7th and 12th. So that means 5 boats in our final were going to the Olympics, and 1 was not. No one wanted to be that 12th place finish. Now, one of the problems with painkillers, the plus and the minus, painkillers obviously numbs you and allows you to function to a certain extent, but it takes away those little things that you need as an elite athlete to feel what's going on in the boat, to be able to follow Cam properly. I'm following him. I'm sitting behind him. I'm whispering to him, or barking, depend how you look at it, what we're doing in the race, what to do when. But my job is to take the load off of Cam so that every time he puts his oars in the water, it feels lighter, and he can set a good rhythm. If I'm not doing my job behind him, he's becoming unnecessarily tired, and that is when we're acting as 2 individuals in the boat instead of that 1 + 1 equaling 3. So I wasn't doing a good job of following him. It was simple as that. But what could I do? I was basically high. The night before the race, I sat down with Cam and I said, we can do this. Let's focus. We got to switch the way we're thinking. We're not focusing on those 5 spots. We're not focusing on not making those 5 spots. We're focusing on being the #1 person in that B final. Let's stop thinking of the percentage or the odds of us coming last and making that top 5. And the reason why we can think that way is because we're passionate about what we do. We back it up with hard work. We surround ourselves with a good team who, even when we're feeling maybe not 110% or not like giving 110%, they force us to give 110%. And we have been pursuing excellence for many years now, chipping away day after day. This is why we left the lightweight group to join Mike Spracklin's group. You know, winners don't only win, but they pull through and the chips are down. That's the definition of a winner. And believe me, it was quite a race. It was 6 minutes long, and all 6 boats finished within 1.5 seconds of each other. So all 6 boats were overlapping, and we came 11th. We qualified the boat. We took the last qualifying spot for the London Olympics, and it was only after coming back to Canada and getting MRIs and everything that I found out that a piece of my disc had broken off and was impinging the nerves on my left leg, which is why I had no feeling in my left leg. So I raced the qualifying regatta not feeling anything in my left leg. But despite this, we still qualified the boat, and only because of the decisions we made. Because of the team we chose, the goals we set out for ourselves, the hard work that we backed it up with. 1 + 1 still equaled something greater than 2 for us at that moment. Hard work does not guarantee success, but without it, there will be no success at all. That is a guarantee. And the other lightweight crew, who had not trained for 3 years, with a boat full of healthy athletes, failed to qualify for the Olympics. And so yes, we failed to meet our goal of becoming world champions or of getting on the podium, but we still qualified the boat. And we did it because of the decisions that we made prior. And so for us, it was a confirmation of all the things that we had done right. We laid a solid foundation which supported us through a very, very extremely tough time. And if that foundation's strong, it will withstand earthquakes, which will inevitably happen to everyone at some point in their life, regardless of what they're doing. And the stronger that foundation, the bigger the earthquake and the tsunami that's needed to wipe it out. And believe me, it was a huge earthquake that we were experiencing in Slovenia. It was a very tough week. Now, I was lucky enough to have spent last month in Sochi with the Canadian mission team. It was my first time at a Winter Games, but also it was my first time at an Olympics, not being an athlete and being on the other side. And it was really interesting because everything that I've talked about thus far was re-emphasized to me once I started talking to the winter athletes and sort of see how they prepared and what they were doing. You know, the athletes were passionate about what they did. That was clear. Whether they were on the bobsled team, the figure skating team, whether they were a snowboarder, they loved more than anything what they did. That doesn't mean that they didn't have ups and downs, but they were happy to get up in the morning and go to work. They looked forward to it. When training, they didn't want to be anywhere else. They were present. You know, they were dreamers, not daydreamers. They had little dreams, big dreams. But they dreamed their whole lives, and they backed it up with hard work. They knew nothing was free, that you have to earn everything that you get. They didn't expect things to happen. They made them happen. They were proactive about it. And yet it didn't seem like hard work for them for all the reasons I've said, because they loved what they did. They were passionate about what they did. It was fun. They were persistent in pursuing their fun, what was fun to them. And they had good teams around them, whether they were veteran athletes or new athletes. They surrounded themselves with the right people and with people who were trying to be as good at their job that the athletes were trying to be at theirs. You know, and I want to re-emphasize that no one can wake up and win a World Cup medal with no preparation. No one can retire comfortably with no preparation or have a successful business with no preparation. What's required are the steps every day that, when added cumulatively over a long period of time, equals to something greater than the sum of those individual parts. And this is what we call the pursuit of excellence. And it's important. It's commitment, the mental strength and courage to commit to something day after day after day after rainy day, even with the knowledge that the odds may be stacked against you, but the pursuit is worthy nonetheless. And the only way to do this is for you to love what you do. It's that simple. There's no other way. And the great and exciting thing is that it's never too late to start anything, to start something. And it applies regardless of your gender, your color, your age, where you're from, your background. Whether you're passionate about sports, about music, about business, it's exciting. It makes me excited because I look at it as my ticket to achieve anything that I want to achieve. find your passion, go after it, attack it, and know that nothing will happen overnight. It might take months, it might take years, but what's the alternative? The alternative is hating your job and being unhappy 5 out of every 7 days that you're alive. And that, for me, is simply not an option. And I hope that for you guys, it's not an option as well.